Hello, hello. Welcome to What's Working Now. I am your host, Katie Richardson, here with an exceptional guest. My guest today is Ray Higdon. Ray is the best-selling author of Time, Money, Freedom, and a highly respected expert who works with high achievers to help them master their emotions and reach their potential in business and in life. And this is the key. Success in business, that's not enough, right? We want to feel fulfilled in all areas. And this is what Ray does. Specifically, in the last 5 years, he's helped his clients generate 300,000 new customers and recruit 70,000 reps. That is significant, my friend. His podcast, Home Business Profits, has had over 9 million downloads and gets about 160,000 downloads every month. Ray, that's significant. That's so good. I love that. His company, Higdon Group, has been recognized as an Inc. 5,000 company and hosts annual events with as many as 2,000 people live and nearly 7,000 registered online. Ray Higdon, my friend, so good to see you. Welcome to the show.
Good to see you. It's been too long.
Well, Ray, it has been too long. You were on the show like 3 years ago and super excited because like any good high achiever, we're constantly evolving and growing and expanding. Yeah. And, before we jump into anything of what you're doing today, which is just so incredible, I want people to get a better understanding of you, who you are, and, what has formed and shaped your view and perspective. So tell us the story of an experience that you've had that has really formed and shaped that perspective and how you view the world today.
Yeah. Ooh. And 3 years ago, 3 years ago, that Ray is no longer here.
Wow.
They call it the death of the old self. And that person wouldn't even, I love him because he hustled and grinded. He did the very best he could do. He showed up when he wasn't sure about himself, and I'm very proud of him and I love him, but that person is very, very far gone. And so, the one that came to mind for this question is really, it was the really key moment for me to transform every area of my life. And so I was having an argument with my wife. And we don't argue much, especially now. We really don't argue now, but every once in a while we would argue. And we're having this argument, and I had really been working on myself. I'd been, meditating every day, and I'd been doing that for like maybe 6 months at this point. And this was about a year ago, and probably right at a year ago. And we get into this argument, and it came up, my program. And it was my first time really observing it. And the program is I'm Not a Priority. And I've since learned that program was created when I was a little kid. When I was 5 or 6 years old, I was in a very abusive home, and relatives knew about this, but no one did anything. And so I anchored a program way back then that I'm just not a priority. Wow. And in this moment of arguing with my wife, it came up and it said, hey, you're not a priority. Stop arguing, just retreat. And I decided, no, I don't want to think that way. I no longer want to think that way. And looking back, this was this autopilot program that we would get in an argument. Mm-hmm. The program would kick in, I'm not a priority. And so I would give her silent treatment, because if I'm not a priority, then what does it matter what I say? And so, but this time I said, no. I observed the program trying to work what had done so many times to me before, and I had allowed, and I decided against that. And so it was really wild. It was like I was losing my mind, which now that I understand more neuroscience, it actually was. I actually was losing my mind, because this was a program that had me on autopilot. It controlled me, not the other way around. And so, that night I couldn't sleep. I would just close my eyes and my brain was just racing. I tried meditating, couldn't meditate. And, the next morning I just kind of gave up, and I'm just like, hey, I told my wife, Jessica, I said, hey, listen, this is what's going on. This is not your problem to fix. It's my problem to fix. Wow. But I just want to tell you what's going on, because I feel like I need to do something. I don't know what to do. And after talking with her, obvious that I am a priority, that this was the program lying to me. And me being defiant to that program is what led to all other change in my life. Because once I overcame this really big thing, it's like, I don't know, have you seen Encanto?
Yeah.
The Disney movie? Okay. Yeah. So, you know, when she starts making cactuses and stuff, and she's like, what else can I do? Bring it in, right? And so it's like, I overcame this humongous program. It's like, well, what else can I do? And so since then I've lost 20 pounds. I've, like, I mean, I now weigh what I weighed as a junior in high school.
Get out.
And it's crazy. And so I've won dance competitions. I've all this crazy stuff, and all this nonsense and craziness has happened. You know, better dad, better husband. My wife, you know, we've been married 10 years last year, and a few months ago we were at breakfast, and she said, you know, you've always been a great husband, but I didn't have any idea how amazing you could be. And like, you know, I mean, that's, you know, to a guy, that's like, oh my God, you know? And so that defiance, that I'm not going to let you run my life anymore program, that's what completely has transformed everything for me.
Good heavens, Ray, that was incredible. And when you talk about this program, you're talking about, you know, what was formed and shaped in your mind, your thoughts and your beliefs that were developed at a really young age. And so, you know, just for anybody who's listening, when you say program, you could also say thoughts or beliefs. And you've spent some time really digging into your mind and not just looking at it, you know, from your perspective, but you've been digging into the science of the mind and thoughts and feelings and how that impacts our actions. And, you know, just recently, since you and I spoke 3 years ago, you've spent a lot of time really diving into this, not just personally, but then trying to understand, how do I synthesize this and really teach it to people in a way that it becomes actionable? So part of that process is you understand how to change, how somebody can transform who they are being, how they're showing up in the world. And that's like the most difficult work anybody could do, right? Because it's even if we're frustrated with our circumstances, it's easy to keep going down that road because it's so familiar. And so to break out of that, and that's what you so beautifully just illustrated for us. You had this moment where you could have run the same program and believed the same thoughts, and you dared and had the courage to step outside of that and be like, hold on a second, do I believe this? Is this true? I mean, that's a huge moment to be able to break out. So what are some steps, things that somebody can do who is like, okay, yeah, I'm stuck in some of that too. And I believe these things so strongly, and I'm struggling, and they're having some difficulty in their life, and it'll show up in some way, right? For you, it was showing up, you were hustling in your business, and that's how it was showing up. Right? You had thoughts and beliefs that were creating anxiety that was pushing you to push yourself inside of your business. So it can show up in a lot of different ways. What are some things that somebody can do who's like, yeah, something's not right in my life, something needs to change? How can they start to actually make change given the science?
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of this, you know, I have to give Dr. Joe Dispenza credit in that I'm going through the process of being able to teach his material and being what he calls a NCS trainer, neuro change solution trainer. And so cool. You know, he's just been so instrumental in my change. And so, you know, it really comes back to just, you know, the concept that your personality creates your personal reality. And your personality is, like you've been saying, your thoughts, actions, and feelings. Right? That's your personality. The issue is that 90% of our thoughts are the same as the day before. And so if you're having the same thoughts, taking the same actions, having the same feelings, and you know, you're expecting different results, that's a problem, right? So most people, they try to change their personal reality outside of them without changing their personality. And so step one, and this is, you know, a lot of people, you know, might hear this and think, oh, well, that's just, oh, so you're saying positive thinking. And hey, positive thinking is better than negative thinking. But it doesn't address the issue, right? The step one is I became aware of the program. That program had been running my whole life. In every relationship I'd ever had, business or personal, I had this thing where I wasn't a priority, and I'd look for it and I'd find it, because you always find what you look for. And so it was first becoming aware of, oh, what is this? I don't want that. Why am I thinking that? And first it's, awareness of your thoughts, awareness of your actions, feelings, and that gives you the opportunity to, to change those, to start to, think differently. And the reason that's so important is, as you have these thoughts, which are just, collections of neurological networks, as they start to be coherent in their incoherence of something you don't want, that sends messages, neuropeptides, down to the limbic brain that says, hey, create this emotion that we're thinking right now. And so now you go down to the adrenal glands, you create these emotions, and that, now you're feeling angry, or you're feeling like you're not a priority, or you're feeling hatred, or you're feeling jealousy. And that is just a feedback loop that goes back to the brain and says, hey, here's how we're feeling. You need to think accordingly. So now you have more thoughts. It's time for round two.
Reinforcing.
And so it's just this loop. And so if you don't intercept that loop and say, wait a minute, this isn't what I actually want. I want good things in my life. Then you're just not going to change. You're going to keep noticing the familiar. You're going to keep running the familiar pattern. And, that program, when I say autopilot, it's another way of saying that it was an implicit or non-declarative memory. It means that it's been ran so many times that the body knows how to run that play better than the conscious mind. My conscious mind wasn't running the program, the body was. And the body, the subconscious, it was running that program without my awareness, without me saying, yes, let's do that. I had no say in the matter. And so when you want to change, step one is becoming aware. What am I thinking? What are the actions that I'm taking based on that thinking? How am I feeling? And first becoming aware of that so that you can make a change.
You're bringing to light so many different things. The fact that our thoughts are physically, scientifically, biologically creating feelings. Everyone needs to be aware of this. And as human beings, we can feel so many uncomfortable things we're constantly trying to avoid feeling. And you're showing us that you actually have influence over that. And there are thoughts, either conscious or unconscious, that are creating the way that we feel. And if we can just be aware, as you're saying, that when I have these thoughts, my body feels this way. Do I like that? Yes or no? Okay. If I don't, let's go back to the beginning. I'm having these thoughts. Maybe we can change these thoughts. And changing those thoughts, it's not easy. It's not intuitive. But it is the gateway into the life that you want. The other thing that you pointed out so beautifully is it's easy to look at our reality, life around us, and point out all the things that we don't like. And we think, I don't live in the house I want, or I don't drive the car that I want, or my marriage doesn't look the way I want. And we think that the problem is outside of us. And what you're saying is, you are the creator of your reality. In a sense, you're creating that. If you're not happy with your reality, don't look outward, go inward.
Yeah. There's an incredible author named Vadim Zeland, and Vadim Zeland wrote a book, massive, it's a huge book. I got it around here somewhere, but he wrote a book called Reality Transurfing. And he says that your outside world, your everything outside of you is a mirror reflection of what's inside of you.
Yes.
And so, this morning I got up and I shaved, right? I had this big important interview on this What's Working Now podcast. So I wanted to look good, right? And so I shaved. What I didn't do is I didn't squirt shaving cream on the mirror and slide my razor on it. That wouldn't make any sense, right? Because I'm not changing I'm only changing the reflection. Mm-hmm. People chase the reflection all the time. They want a different bank account, but they don't want a different money mindset. They want a different relationship, but they don't challenge their feelings and how they're showing up in the relationship. Mm-hmm. And so just understand that the things outside of you, and this should be good news. Yes. This should be good news, because if we were just tumbling through space and like we had no say in what was outside of us, then there's not much you can do. You either were dealt a good hand or you weren't. Yeah. Well, if you understand that everything outside of me is a reflection of what's inside of me, then that gives me hope, and that means I can change. And I'll give an example, because it's basically, you want to start moving in a way to where you start to see the things that you want prior to your senses. So, the neocortex, that is our thinking brain. That's our five senses. It's what plugs us into the 3D reality. And so we see what's in the bank account. We see, how the spouse treats us. We see how the kids talk back to us, or whatever. And so when you want to expedite the change, you need to see things as you actually want them to, prior to your five senses noticing them. And so I have an example, and I like to think this is a good example because, you and I and a lot of the people that I bet you interview have generated a lot of money online and all those things. And so the listener may say, oh, well, easy for you to say. Well, I have a story that's not easy to say.
Yeah.
And so about a year and a half ago, I bought ballroom dance lessons for my wife and I, and just want to spend more time with her. Just, thought we'd have some fun. Didn't know where it was going to go. And so we start, and she, of course, she's naturally gifted at everything she ever does. It's incredible. Like, she's just first time skiing. She's zooming down the advanced hills, and I'm doing pizza, French fries. It's just, she's always super talented, super quickly at anything she ever tries for the first time. Me, not so much. And so I do this ballroom dancing, and I'm just terrible, man. I mean, I'm horrible. And I mean, the dance instructor's like, Ray, do you hear the rhythm? It goes doom, da, da, doom. And I'm just like, and I'm just terrible. And I know this is true. I'm not making this up. 4 months in, I was doing 2 classes a week and showing up, doing the work. 4 months in, and there was a guy that he was a new student, and he came in a little early. He's lacing up his shoes, watching me. And I finish, and he rushes over to me and my wife. She's right there. And he says, oh my God, I'm so glad I came in early. You made me feel so much better.
Oh, wow.
Like, thanks, buddy. In front of my wife. And so,
because you're that bad. Is that what he was implying?
That's how bad I was. I mean, I'm just like stomping my feet, and I'm off base. I mean, I don't even hear the music. I literally, I didn't even hear the music. And so I go home that night, and I'm like, I know all this stuff for business, and I'm just showing up like a victim. I'm showing up like a wussy. Like, I'm not doing anything with my mindset. And I'm like, all right, I'm changing this. And so that night I started doing mental rehearsal.
Wait, wait. Dig into that a little bit more. Cause like, yes, you were sucking, but what were your thoughts? Share us with those thoughts, first 4 months.
Yeah. My thoughts were, I'm not a good dancer. Right. So I noticed every misstep. I'm like, oh, I'm trying my best over here. I was just showing up like so many, like we see so many people show up when they're starting out with their business. I'm not good at sales. I'm not this. Right. And so I was doing that, but just replace it with dance. And so, I'm not coordinated. I'm not good at dance. I don't hear the beat. And so I'm noticing all my missteps, all the things wrong, all the things I can't do, and getting annoyed. Because like Jess, she would go, they had different dance instructors, and she would dance with the other dance instructor and look incredible. And then I'm like the big ogre slowing her down. I'm just like, it's just a mess. And so I go home, and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to change this. And so I start doing mental rehearsal. I start before bed every night. I start seeing myself as a good dancer. And I ask myself 2 very important questions. And this is all frontal lobe. You're just hammering the frontal lobe when you do this stuff. And so I'm asking myself, how would it feel, right? How would it feel if I was a good dancer? I'd feel confident. I'd feel like a good representation for my wife. Like I'd feel like the man. And then I ask myself, how would I know it's true? And so, well, if it were true, then people would compliment me. What would that look like? And so, this is where it gets a little weird. So I saw my dance instructor, Victoria, say, wow, impressive. This is all in my imagination.
Okay.
I see the dance studio owner, who's, she's Russian, she's very tough. Irina, she said, very much improved. Right. So I see these, I feel it. I'm mental rehearsal. And so I do that every night for the next, 4 or 5 nights. And I go back into the studio, and I do this, I think it was cha-cha. I do this cha-cha move, and Victoria says, wow, impressive. Literally verbatim what I'd seen in my mind. Same
good.
class, Irina says, very much improved. Like literally verbatim,
So
like
good.
word for word, what I had
Yes.
seen in my imagination. And
Yeah.
so I had seen it in my head before my senses could see it. And it actually came and was created in my reality.
Yeah.
And so fast forward maybe 6 or 7 months, we go down to Miami and we enter this international, competition. We come in first place in 2 different dances in our division, salsa and cha-cha, and mine, which was amazing, of course. And and by the way, I rehearsed, coming in first as well, right? I'd mental rehearsed that, and so the instructor said something really cool to me. So the instructor says, Ray, you really weren't getting any better. And then one day is just like, you just like took off. You just started getting a lot better, a lot faster. So that must have been the day that you started practicing at home. And the reality is I did not increase what I was doing. Okay. Now I did mental rehearsal, but I didn't go from 2 lessons a week to 3. The things that I did is I started mental rehearsing and I stopped noticing my missteps. I stopped spending so much energy on, I'm just not very good, right? I stopped using those same, thoughts and feelings that I had been addicted to that entire time of dance. And all of a sudden there was transformation there.
Oh my word. I mean, to use your dance analogy, we have these thoughts and these beliefs and we continue to dance with them, and they continue to limit our life. They limit our reality. They limit our potential to accomplish and achieve the things that we say we want. And this story is absolutely incredible at illustrating the power of your mind, the power of thoughts and beliefs. And to use your step number 1, when you have the awareness on how your thoughts and beliefs are creating your reality, and you take ownership over that and you say, I don't like this. I don't want this. I want this to change. And you start asking questions like, how would it feel to finally be successful and a really good dancer?
Right.
And how would I know once that is happened? Like, what's the evidence that will show me? And you use the power of your mind to create the future that hasn't happened yet. You created it into your mind and made a decision on what you wanted your life, your reality to feel like and to look like. And literally within, was it 1 day that?
No, it was like 4 or 5 days. It was like 4 or 5 days later.
Very soon.
It was very soon. Yes.
That creation that you had imagined and you had visualized was now being reflected back to you.
Yes.
And probably with way less effort and frustration and resistance. Like you weren't forcing these people to say these things or showing up desperate and needy of them to see this in you. In a lot of ways, you probably had let that go. And it was just like, you were there. You were there doing your thing with this new thought, this new belief, this new direction that you were oriented and pointed at. Yeah. So
an important note there is, it's not like all of a sudden I was an amazing dancer. I just stopped noticing all my missteps. And so for the listener, that may be, I stopped noticing the lack of money. I stopped noticing the lack of love or appreciation. I stopped noticing, and because what you pay attention to expands. And so I just stopped all this non-serving energy of noticing how I screwed that up or how I'm not coordinated or how I missed the beat. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden I was, picture perfect and just dancing up a storm. I just didn't notice all my missteps.
I mean, that's huge right there.
Yeah.
You shifted your focus from noticing the missteps, noticing the pitfalls, like you said, the lack of money in the bank account. That's huge right there.
Yeah.
Shifted your focus. So you just stopped noticing, which just reinforces the things that we don't want. It reinforces the pain, the suffering, the frustration of the past. It's like we keep bringing it with us, like a cluttered garage. We're just keeping it with us. As much as we say we don't want it, by pointing it out, we keep it in the garage and we're keeping the clutter there. And by not noticing it, it's like, it's all of a sudden it's diminishing. And
Dr. Joe says, Yeah, Dr. Joe calls that the familiar past. And as long as you're holding on to the familiar past, which is how you think, act, and feel, then you'll have a predictable future. So as long as you have this familiar past of how you respond, react, of what you expect, what you anticipate, what you're reaffirming, who you're being, then you have a predictable future. It's like your past could just be placed on, yesterday could be placed on, tomorrow, and they're the same. And so you have to, it's becoming aware of, okay, I need to change this. I want something different. I want a new result in my life. All right, what is it that I actually want? What is my intention?
Something I'm noticing as you share your story and your experience in these transformational moments is you're asking powerful questions that do shift your focus, that do move you away from reinforcing the past to a door opening into new possibility. Are there things that how do you find these questions to ask? Are there resources? Are there kind of not default, but like a good set of questions that consistently that helps you break out of the past?
I mean, I think a really simple one, just basic, right? So you can go from basic to, to advanced, but just basic is, what do I want? And so looking at, this, like I'm in like speaking season. I mean, I'm booked like every single week for a different speaking event. I got Dubai, we got a thing in Italy, we got like, we're just busy. Wow. And so I just no longer just show up to anything. I mean, any kind of event, any kind of webinar, any kind of anything. It's like, okay, what's my intention? What do I want out of this thing? Yes. And it's not, there's a difference between, setting an intention or being desperate, right? Yes. So it's not setting a need. I need this thing to do something for me, because you're making it too urgent. You're making it too important. But I always will now set an intention. And I'll give you an example. One of my favorite examples. This happened in about 6 months ago. 6 months ago, I was a keynote speaker at this event in Vegas, and I think there was like 1,000 people there maybe. And when I was about to fly there, I noticed a lot of things were off, and just from being so aware of my emotions and thinking, I notice when I'm agitated. Now, in the past, I could have been agitated for a week and not even noticed it. But now it's like, when I'm agitated, wait a minute, I don't want that. All right, what do I want? And so the PowerPoint wasn't ready. The shipment hadn't gone out. The order forms weren't ready. Like there are multiple things just not right. And they should have been right, because we were hired like, 6 months prior. And so I'm like, all right, I'm agitated. All right, fine. I took that time to express all the things that was annoying and all the possibilities of negativity. So what could go wrong? Now, most people don't do this exercise, right? Because they're not supposed to. You're not supposed to, don't say anything you don't want.
They don't want to shine a light on the thing that they're afraid of.
Exactly.
That'll make it more and worse. Yes.
And so they suppress it, right?
Yes.
So they shove it, they kick it in the closet, and they say, I'm wealthy and abundant, right? They spray paint positive affirmations on it, right? Yeah. And so instead, I'm just like, all right, I'm going to express what is it that I'm feeling? What is it that I'm doing? And this is now a morning exercise for me. So I do it every single morning, where I express what are some of the negative thoughts that I'm having? What are the things that I don't want to think? Is this in a
journal, or how are you?
I do a little type of journal where, where I say, here are the thoughts that I had yesterday that I don't want to have anymore. What are the thoughts I actually want to have, the feelings, et cetera. Yeah. And so, all right, what could possibly go wrong? Let me express it. Let me exhaustively express it. So I say, okay, order forms don't get there. The shipment doesn't get there. I bomb on stage. They hate me. They never hire me again. And it's a total waste for me and everyone involved. Oh, right? Man. That's nasty. I mean, I go nasty. I don't tiptoe through the tulips. I go like, what's the worst case scenario? I mean, I didn't say I fall off stage. I mean, get impaled or something. Like I guess I could have gone worse, but like I say, like, what are the things that could possibly go wrong? But then I'm like, okay, what is it that I want? What is my intention? And so I set 5 intentions. The company rehires me immediately. the number one earner hires me. It was for a network marketing company. They form a leadership group that hire me to train their leaders. Sales are through the roof, and people come up to me with tears in their eyes saying it's the best presentation they've ever seen. Now, that's a tall order, right? You get 3
opposite
to 5.
end of the spectrum there, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty intense, right? And so I do the presentation. The company rehires me immediately. The number one earner hires me. They form a leadership group. Sales are through the roof. And I have probably 20 people come up to me with tears in their eyes saying it's the best presentation they've ever seen. And so I'm seeing that over and over and over. A couple weeks, I mentioned Dubai, a couple weeks back.
You're just jumping past this.
I know.
It's huge.
But
It's
literally
huge.
everything, every single thing. And it was just like, okay, why didn't I know this earlier, right? And so
you caught it in your mind and you shifted it on paper. You created it spiritually first, and then it showed up in your reality.
Yeah.
So good.
But you can do that. You can do that with anything, just like the dance example. You can do it with anything. And I think one of the keys that I've learned is not just setting intention, but holding intention.
Yeah.
I have, we have a coaching program where I coach the coaches and they coach, some of our students. And so I set a goal of, I want to grow this program. It's been very, profitable. It's been a very good program, but it's kind of been the same place for a long time. We need to grow this thing. The week that I decide that, one of the coaches turns on me and attacks me in a group setting, just lays it into me, just really out of nowhere. I've never heard one complaint from this person. They like attack me publicly. And so for most people, I know how it would work. They set this intention and then this thing happens, like, oh my God, there's no way it's going to grow now. But I've learned to hold the intention. See, that needed to happen.
Yeah. Since
that happened, we brought in all kinds of amazing stuff since that happened. That actually needed to happen for me to hit this. And that's a really tricky thing, is when you set an intention, you're going to get it, unless the things that come into play that will allow you to hit this are things you don't like, and you focus on them instead, and you smother that intention. And so I've had people say, I want to grow my sales organization. And then like the minute they set that, their number one person leaves and they're like, oh, great. Well, that actually needed to happen for you to reach that intention. And if you can just hold the intention and say, hey, this is coming, that needed to happen. Although I don't want it and I don't like it, it needed to happen for some reason. If you can hold it, you're going to get that intention. And that's what I've seen over and over and over.
Part of what I'm hearing you say is, we have this visual of what we want to happen. And with that, we see it happening a certain way. And almost never, it almost never will show up in the way that we think it will. And like you said, like if we can stay there with the intention, the result will come. It will come in a different form, in a different way than maybe you imagined. But if you can stay at that, focus on that target and that intention, it will show up. And what's happening that looks like disaster is maybe life, the universe conspiring in your favor to accomplish the thing that you've created in your mind.
Yeah. Like I needed the dance hater. I needed that. Without that, I may have trudged along for another 4 months. Right. And it was that kick in the teeth that actually was like, hey, I need to change this thing, man. And so it was something that I certainly didn't desire that kind of feedback in front of my wife. Right. But without it, it wouldn't have pushed me to really evaluate, what am I doing here and how do I actually improve?
Well, this is another thing that I'm seeing as you tell all of your stories. It could have been very easy to point the finger at this guy. Who does he think he is to say this to me? And go back to what you taught us in the beginning, which was looking externally. And instead you looked at yourself. And as you looked at yourself, you saw that your mindset was pointing out all of the flaws and the things that you were doing wrong on the dance floor.
Yeah.
And so what I'm hearing you say, Ray, is you're living the things that you're teaching us, and you're showing it through all of these incredible stories.
Yeah. And so, with that, So yes, and with that, it's just said, it just led me to like the Encanto, song, what else can I do?
Yes.
And so like, how can I improve as a dad? How can I improve as a husband? How can I improve as a speaker, as a business owner, as a human? And it's just led me to set very different intention in all areas of my life. And so, I'd had pretty good business success, Inc. 5,000, generating, 30 plus million online, and what most would see as awesome. But I really didn't have any joy or fulfillment. And I really struggled. Here's something you probably don't know, but do you remember the year I spoke at Funnel Hacking Live?
Yeah.
I actually had, when we were all in the lobby area about to go into the room on night one, I had to go back to my hotel room because I was hyperventilating.
Wow.
I had such bad, weird social anxiety that I know the source now. I didn't know the source back then, but I had such bad social anxiety that I just freaked out. Now, if anyone asked me about business, that was fine. It's when it would get personal. It's when someone would become close with me that I would kind of, freak out. And that comes from just betrayal early in life. And so just having that program was, people are going to betray me. So if I keep them at distance, then it won't hurt that bad.
Wow.
And so it's just constant. What am I thinking? What are my thoughts? What are my feelings? Is that what I actually want? And that evaluation is what allows you to figure out new stuff.
So incredible. I really appreciate you sharing, especially those vulnerable moments, because I know you're not the only one who's gone through those kinds of experiences.
Sure.
And that's the beauty of bringing you on here and having you share all of your personal stories. Is you're part of the human experience. And while your experiences are showing up in dance and being on stages, it's very relatable. And, no matter whether somebody's just starting their business, they're very far along in their business, or maybe they're at that point where they're making buku bucks and they're so not fulfilled. And that's terrifying because they had been taught from a young age that you just need to get the money, get the girl, get the car, and you'll be happy. And, you got yourself there and it wasn't fulfilling. And so, and now you are creating that fulfillment in your life by, in a sense, creating your reality, like intentionally asking yourself, what do I want? What do I want? And then going and creating that thing that you desire.
Yeah, exactly. There was a time where, and I think I've since heard this from a lot of other guys, and that, there was a time where I used to not be able to spend more than 4 or 5 minutes with my kids without having to look at my phone. Or I got to do something, I'm busy, and there's always stuff to do. You're never in a lack of things to do, whether it's check social media or, email or whatever. And, that was something I licked this past year, and, now I can hang out with them for hours, and it's awesome. And it's a totally different experience. And, my daughter, who's 6, she went from, there were times where, she really didn't want to hang out with me. And I think it's because I wasn't present, to, one day, Jess, my wife, asked her, what's your favorite thing to do? And she said, play with daddy. And of course I had to hide my tears there. But it's just life is a different experience now. And it all started with just being aware of my thoughts and feelings, and what does that look like? And what do I want?
That awareness has put you in the driver's seat, and you're no longer just getting a default life. You're intentionally creating it, and you're using your desires, your imagination, and continually playing a bigger game than maybe you ever have, right? And you're doing it with less hustle, less overwhelm, less stress, more fulfillment, more joy, and greater reach and impact. Super inspiring, Ray. Super inspiring. And I mean, we didn't even talk about the story of divorce and bankruptcy and failure, right? Like everyone who's hearing you has no idea that you're a man who's walked through those things. And so it's been a journey to get to this point. And what I want everyone to know is, like, it's never too late. Like, you can always wake up. you can always become aware of your thoughts and how they're making you feel. And that's something that we did not dive into. Like, it's so rare to get a man who can talk about what he's feeling, especially a high achieving, high performing, and yet you see the value of that. You do.
Yeah, I mean, and we're, you know, most guys are taught not to, you know, don't you cry,
Yes.
boys don't cry or whatever. And so, you know, the problem is when you turn off,
Yes.
you know, feelings, you're also turning off joy too.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I was just hustling to the next goal, but none of those goals, I was trying to fill a hole that couldn't be filled with those things. And so it's just a never ending hamster wheel. And, you know, and that's, I think you know, just from coaching a lot of very, very high achievers, it's where a lot of them are, you know, they think the next goal is going to make them feel good, but they know the last one didn't, and the one before that didn't, and the one before that didn't. So how the hell is the next one going to do it? And that's, you're trying to fill a hole with a square, you know, it's like, it's just not going to fit in there. You have to figure out something else. There's a different solution to filling that hole. And that is inside of you. It's not outside of you. It's not hitting the next, you know, Forbes list or Inc list or whatever. It's, there's nothing wrong with that. But what's wrong with it is thinking that the next goal is going to be the one that makes you feel good or makes you feel joy or fulfilled or significant. Because if the last one's didn't, the next one isn't either.
Yeah. So for those of our audience who are listening and they're like, oh, that is me. I am on that hamster wheel. And I have convinced myself the next mountain peak will be the one where I can finally experience that fulfillment and joy. Are there any books that you would point that person to, resources, ways to get started? I know awareness is a huge first step, but is there something that you would point them to? I mean, you, of course, that could help and guide them on that journey. What would you say to that person?
Yeah. So I talk a lot about, you know, figuring out your programs in our Time, Money, Freedom book. And so we have this, it's out by Hay House. My wife and I wrote it. It's 10 simple rules to redefine what's possible and radically reshape your life. And, you know, from there, also anything, you know, Dr. Joe Dispenza, you know, I went to, it's been about a year since I went to his 7-day meditation retreat. And, you know, what's cool about, you know, meditation is one of the main assets of meditation is becoming familiar with, is for you to really start to understand you. And you do that by turning off, you know, the environment, body, time. You turn off everything to go within. And, you know, all these different stages. I remember, you know, when I started this, I've been meditating every day for about a year and a half now. And I do, you know, 90 minutes usually. And I just remember like walking down the street one day, I'm just like, man, I feel so much lighter and my mind isn't chattering. Wow, this is amazing. You know, like it was just a weird experience. And so it just helps you in so many different ways of just calming your mind, lowering or changing your brain waves and becoming familiar with yourself. And, you know, you need that awareness. Like you said, you need to become familiar with yourself and what are you currently thinking, feeling, so that you can, you know, change that stuff. So, you know, anything Dr. Joe Dispenza, our book might be helpful as well.
So good. Ray, I want to ask you a few rapid fire questions. I mean, this has been an amazing conversation. I feel like I'm just scratching the surface. I think we're going to have you back because it's been so incredible. And you've done an amazing job of really illustrating to somebody how to pull out of their programming and to, you know, ask new, better questions that won't pull them back to the past and start to really be in the driver's seat and creating their life, creating their reality, and ultimately experiencing what you're describing, that joy, that fulfillment, where life isn't just a hamster wheel. Even if there's a lot of money on that hamster wheel, ultimately it's not fulfilling. And that's what you are working on creating for yourself and creating through your book and your programs. And it's absolutely inspiring. So thank you. I have a few rapid fire questions.
Sure.
And you answered one of them, which was a book. So what's something that you do consistently every day?
I mean, meditation. And I also do, right when I wake up, I do a morning kind of journal process.
Awesome. And meditation, is it like a vocally
I do a
guided
Dr.
meditation?
Joe.
Oh,
I do
cool.
a guided Dr. Joe meditation. He's got a lot of them. And so, figure out which one's best for you. But I started with a 20-minute one. Couldn't sit still. I was terrible at meditating for my first 4 or 5 months. And then eventually I learned how to settle the animal down, settle the body down, settle the mind down. And so now it's something that my body craves. It's something that is just so beneficial for you.
I love it. So good. What's some good advice that you've received in your life that has really blessed and benefited you?
I mean, I'll share my 3 mantras. From all the advice I've ever received, I came up with 3 mantras for my life. And that is, help the person you used to be, which can be very helpful, right? Someone struggling with their niche, just help the person you used to be. Like if you've lost 10 pounds, help the person that needs to lose 10 pounds. If you overcame a narcissistic, partner, then help someone else do that too. So help the person you used to be. We have to be as brave as the people who need us, which is all about courage, right? So there's, this last 2 years have been, yes, they've been the greatest growth of my life, but they've also been very tough. It's tough to challenge your programs. It's tough to go face to face with, the autopilot and the program that's been running your life the whole time. And then lastly, which is a newer one, is let me never be so busy saving strangers that I neglect my own. Because of my past, I had a kind of a weird dichotomy between, I could train thousands and thousands of people, but I struggled to mentor my kids. And it's because I put parenting in an authoritative role than a mentoring role. And I don't have a good role model for authority. And so I just struggled on, how do I mentor them? And so by understanding that I'm meant to be a mentor in all areas, that really changed that. And I've been able to teach my kids at a lot better level. And this, for most people, it's probably a normal thing. For me, because of my bad examples as a kid, I struggle with that one.
That's so incredible as you describe that shift. And it goes to a lot of your stories. When you have that new thought and that new frame that you put around, it's like you've flipped a switch, and it's almost like you don't need training on how to now mentor your kids. It just now naturally flows out of you now that you have that more accurate perspective that will create the outcome that you want.
That's a really good point. If you have a thought that making money is hard, then that's a framework that's going to fit on top of every time you read Think and Grow Rich. It's going to sit on top of every movie you watch about making money. It's going to fit on top of every course you buy. It's going to fit. And so it's when you're trying to take from the outside and jam it in, when you have an opposing thought, you're going to be, one, working way harder than you need to, and two, you're probably going to lose that battle. And so that's why it's very, very well said of, you change that frame. If you just change, I wrote a few months ago on Facebook, I said, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer because both are verifying what they believe to be true.
Love that.
And so, it's not, when I change from, I should be a mentor, as I didn't need a manual. I was like, just be a mentor. What would that look like? And not that I couldn't use some help with a manual or a book or whatever, but it's a very big shift. I could have read 50 parenting books, and I have actually. I've read a bunch of parenting books, and none of them could permeate, that just hardwire in the cerebellum, kind of way I looked at things.
Yeah. It's a the power and a testament to the work that you're doing and having that awareness and changing the thoughts, which then change the way you feel, which then changed your actions in parenting in this specific scenario. I love that mantra and the 3 parts to it. That's really incredible.
Yeah.
You can answer this next question any way that you want, but Ray Higdon, what's working now?
What's working now is just standing for possibility of what's possible versus what's probable. And so standing for possibility, being aware, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? How am I showing up? How am I being? Some days I look back and I think, I could have been more loving to my wife today. And so I make a better effort, the next day. And then the last would be intention of, am I setting my intention? So I just no longer blindly walk into something and say, I hope it's good, right? I'm like, what do I actually want out of this? Like, what do I hope happens? And I don't ever try to dictate the how, but it's like, what is it that I would love to get out of this? The other day, Saturday, actually, a few days ago, I've been working on this kind of a rebranding of I've just been getting this pull to move in a different direction and to work specifically with high achievers. And I didn't know exactly what that looked like. And so in my morning journal, I wrote, I want a clear career path. And, in my meditation, I just totally got it. And I remember I'm in the airplane flying back from Cancun, and I go to the bathroom and I start thinking about it. I'm like, oh my God, I just got a clear career path. And I journaled about this morning, and I just started crying out of gratitude, because it was just like, sometimes things aren't answered that fast, but it was just like so lasered in and so dead on perfect of exactly what I needed. And so it's just, just incredible.
That's amazing. That's amazing. For anybody who is listening to this and saying, I need more Ray Higdon in my life, they can go get your book, Time, Money, Freedom. Is that what it was called?
Yep.
Where can they follow you and send you a DM to tell you thank you for everything that you've shared? What is the best place to do that?
Instagram's the easiest. That one I check. So it's, my other ones get checked, but it's not always by me. But yeah, I'm just at Ray Higdon on Instagram.
Awesome.
And I do a lot of videos sharing this kind of content.
Love that. And we will make sure to have that in the show notes. Ray, thank you so much for showing up, for being present, for really sharing your heart, your experiences, your struggles and failures, and the things that are working for you right now, and helping to create and build an incredible business and incredible life. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you so much.
And for everybody listening, this is What's Working Now.